Hey all, so before we start this video, I just want to say I had an idea. So when I feel like it, probably like every 2 videos or so, maybe less than that, I'm going to be doing a rant, commentary, or just personal story kind of thing at the beginning of every video. For those of you who honestly couldn't give less of a shit about my opinions or random anecdotes, and I mean, that's just fine. Scary stories are pretty much what my channel is dedicated to, right? I'll include the time you can skip to just get right to the stories. So I guess one of the reasons why I'm doing this is it's always bummed me out that I haven't really had a true scary story to tell myself. I've never been chased or stalked, ran into anybody that was crazy to an unreasonable extent, had any scary encounters with ghosts, been almost murdered, or ever been to some abandoned building or cemetery at night. But at the same time, maybe that's for the best, since those kinds of things usually leave people paranoid wrecks. That, and I'm not always the most intuitive person I know, as in I'm not always able to think on my toes that well, I guess, and thus would probably be fucking dead in a situation like that. But anyhow, that's probably one of the reasons I'll be doing these little things, I guess. Cause I just love telling stories in general. Most of them will just be ridiculous instead of scary, and might just serve to lighten the mood a bit before the video. So today's might actually double as a horror story and a funny story though, because it started at the DMV. And we've all heard the stereotypical, oh, the lines at the DMV are a nightmare and the service is the worst and yada yada yada. But about like 2 days ago, I was taking my driving test for the first and hopefully last time, and my appointment was at 10 a.m. obviously, but my mom and I had gotten up at 8 o'clock and left at 9:15 to make sure we wouldn't be late. Turned out it was for naught, as there was no parking in like a 5-mile radius. We decided to park next to the donut shop across the street, but there was some lady who was smoking in her car across the street at the DMV that told us it wasn't really a good idea since we would be towed if we parked there if we were going to the DMV, because it was a non-DMV parking area, I guess. We were pretty skeptical at first, as we would only be there for a few minutes because afterwards we'd just get in line with all the other drivers, but we decided to listen to her and try and find a parking space elsewhere. I'm so glad she gave us that heads up and we actually listened, because right as we were pulling out of the parking lot, there was some guy dressed in a mechanic outfit that was coming right around the corner, presumably to find cars to tow. So if that had happened, that would have been a huge disappointment, since I obviously couldn't take my driving test without a car. So we finally find a parking spot like a few blocks down, like across the street from a karate studio. When we enter the DMV, the guy working there we're supposed to go to is this really grumpy, solemn looking, almost exactly like Toby from The Office kind of guy, except about 20 years older with gray hair instead of brown. It's mean of me to make this assumption, but he's probably downcast because he's been working at that job for the past like 20 years and thus was getting a bit sick of dealing with idiots like me and my mom all day. We had forgotten our registration or something in the car, and my mom said with a laugh, "Oh, whoopsies. Dang, we should have brought that with us." He just deadpanned, "Yeah, you should have." And there was a line of like 5 people behind us, and we were worried that he would make us go back and get it, making us get back in line and miss our appointment. Luckily that was not the case, as he was able to pull it up on some database, so maybe he isn't the most unhappy and unkind person in the world like I initially thought. So there's the line of cars outside that are going to take the test, and we get into that line. There's a green minivan in front of us, and as it turns out, their tire light is on. Who the hell takes a driving test knowing their tire light is on? Like, they know that they're going to check it, so why did they even bother? Of course, the lady who was helping them was super muscular and tattooed and overall kind of gruff looking, and she was already put into an annoyed mood with that minivan with the low tire pressure. So the lady tells them to get their goddamn tires filled first before they could get their test done, and then to come back. And I think, great, just my luck that I'm gonna get this super strict looking lady now, and because that person just had to have tire problems. So she walks up, says hi, and does the usual routine to make sure everything is working. Honestly, I don't remember anything of note during the actual test itself. It was pretty standard and only lasted like 15 minutes, and we hardly got out of the DMV area. Or I thought it was pretty standard anyways, as when we pull back into the DMV, it turns out that I had only had, 14 out of 15 small mistakes on the test. I had tried not to pay too much attention to her writing stuff, but turned out I had made a lot of little mistakes. To be honest, if she didn't like me, she could have just wrote one more mistake just to fail me, so thanks, lady, that seemed mean at first, for being generous enough to let me pass. And as it turned out, I'm pretty sure the smoking lady from earlier was the same woman who did my driving test, since she looked a lot like her and coughed a lot while we drove. And hell, my best friend passed his test the first time too, mainly because the instructor didn't notice they had made a critical error by not fully stopping at a stop sign. I was a bit jealous because I knew I wouldn't get that kind of luck or leeway on my test, but as it turns out, maybe I did. Everything somehow just barely worked out. Had I been towed, had that front guy desk been a jerk about it, or had my instructor just decided to fail me for how many mistakes I had made, I wouldn't have passed, and I'd be down about it for the rest of the day and probably develop some sort of jealousy, inferiority complex to my friend. But nope, we both passed. It would have been a huge waste too, since he wanted me to go camping with his family, but I had to decline because I was taking the test. I couldn't wait to tell him. Anyways, that's that then. I hope you enjoy my little random anecdotes, and let me know you want me to continue doing these things in the future, but otherwise, let's get to the actual stories that you probably came here for. So, this one happened to me very recently and is still fresh in my memory. My name is Simone. No, not Simon, I'm a girl, and I'm 20 years old. I live on the countryside in an idyllic village where half the houses are vacation homes. Not much happens here, but if you enjoy nature, it's great. I'm an outdoorsy kind of woman, and my favorite element being water, I do kayaking, diving, swimming, and anything else water related that I can get my hands on, so to speak. I was on my way home from my night shift. I got this job for the summer at a halfway house. It's a home for 8 recovering addicts, and there's always 2 people that have to be working there at night too, just in case. It's usually very calm. We play cards, watch TV, cook, and etc. It's easy money, basically. So, back on topic, I was driving home, and as I always do, when I stopped at the little secluded lake for a swim. I can never resist a good swim, and I always have a bikini in my car. This lake isn't very large, but crystal clear and surrounded by a beautiful forest area. You would never know it was there if nobody told you about it. The little road that leads down to the beach is narrow and well hidden. As a result, there's almost nobody there apart from the occasional dog walker. I had only started to swim out into the lake when I felt that my car key, that I kept tied on to a piece of string and then tied around my ankle, didn't feel tight enough, and I was afraid that it would slip off of my ankle and be lost. So instead of swimming straight out into the lake, I quickly made my way around the little rocky part of a headland. I'm not sure what word correctly describes it, as my English is limited, but bear with me. If the lake is slightly L-shaped, I was in on the angle and could see through to the beach in car. As I fastened the string better, I looked up towards my car. I'm now in a hidden spot, not far from the beach in the car, but hidden behind a corner so I could see the car from the side. I didn't see him at first, and I had to squint to make sure it wasn't an illusion or a trick of my imagination. But no, squatting behind my SUV was a man in a bright yellow hoodie that I recognized. I didn't see his face, of course, as it was too far away to actually see who it was, but I did recognize the hoodie. It was Creepy Freddy. He was only 17, but very unstable, and hadn't returned from his visit to his parents the day before. We had called the police, of course, but since he usually turned up on his own after a few days of freedom and drugs, the police often advised us to wait and see. He had earned his nickname Creepy Freddy after assaulting a girl with a scythe for no other reason than he had felt that she was too beautiful. She wasn't badly injured, but still, it's creepy indeed. He had a long history of drug-induced violent outbursts, and even if he was nice enough when he was sober, he was a nightmare when he wasn't. I thought about trying to get up and leave the car and try and walk towards the main road, but what if he spotted me and ran after me? I had no idea if he was fit or not, and I was barefoot and my orange bikini would be easy to spot. I decided against it, as the risk of coming face to face with a probably drugged, violent, and possibly armed Freddy was too big a risk. I considered my options and realized that there was only one: to swim across the lake and reach the little cluster of vacation cottages that occupied the opposite beach. As quietly as I could, I started to swim. The swim took me over 90 minutes, and I kept turning around to see if I was being followed. I reached the other beach, exhausted and cold. I walked up to the sandy beach as a young mom and her kids spotted me. I explained the situation, and she phoned the police and fed me scones and coffee and the best waffles that I had ever had. Police arrived to find Freddy gone, and all 4 of my tires were slashed. I resigned from my job at the halfway house, and I hope we never meet again. Freddy is, as far as I know, still not found. First time poster here. My name is Jose, and I'm 16 years old and live in Arizona. So it was a Friday night, and my cousin Jason called me in and asked if I wanted to come to his mini party with his 2 friends and I. I didn't want to go, but I accepted his offer because I was really bored at home. My mom dropped me off at Jason's house. I was really happy because I got along with everyone there. We stayed up really late playing video games. At around 11 p.m., we were pretty hungry, so Jason asked his mom if she could order us a pizza. She said yes, but said she was going to sleep because she was tired, so she ordered it and paid through her credit card. After what seemed like forever, we heard a knock at the door. Everyone was playing video games except for me, so I had to go get the pizza. I looked through the living room window, only to see a tall man with thick, gray, messy hair. I had a weird vibe from him, but I saw that he was holding the pizza in his hand, so I opened the door. He greeted me with a smile and gave me the pizza. I said thanks, and as soon as I was about to close the door, he asked, "Hey,
You know I've had a really long day, so could I come inside and get a glass of water?
red flags were popping up in my head. I told him that I would bring him a glass of water, but he had to wait outside. After I took the pizza to the kitchen, I filled a glass of water and made my way to the living room. My heart almost stopped when I saw this man was sitting on my cousin's living room couch. I said, "Whoa, what the fuck, man? I told you to wait outside." He ignored me and I said, "Get the fuck out, this isn't even my house." He then looked up at me, got up and left. After I made sure I locked the front door, I took the pizza to Jason's room and told everybody what just happened. They all looked at me as if I was crazy, but they did believe me. I forgot all about it and we all went to sleep after eating pizza. At about 2 a.m., I woke up to a noise in Jason's front yard. I went to his living room and saw a black car parked in his driveway. I was confused and kept staring outside until somebody came out. I almost cried when I saw that it was the same man who brought the pizza. He made his way to the front door but didn't knock. He didn't notice me, so I closed the blinds and ran to Jason's room. I woke him up and told him what was going on. He ran with me to the living room window, and sure enough, the man was still standing there. He was going to wake up his mom, but I told him not to because his mom had really had a long day. Out of the blue, Jason coughed and the man turned towards us. We stood still like statues. He smiled, waved, and showed us a bag with something in it. He left it in the front doorstep and ran to his car and sped off. We were scared shitless, but didn't wake anybody else up. We didn't feel comfortable getting whatever that man left outside either, so we waited until sunrise to get it. Next day, it was 7 a.m. and everyone except for Jason and I were still asleep. We got the bag, and inside was a bag with a DVD entitled Pizza.exe. We were so scared to even play it, so Jason put the DVD on the top of his closet and never played it. We still haven't told anybody about this, and we still haven't played the DVD and probably never will. I'm still good friends with Jason's friends, but the story is only a secret I keep between Jason and I. So, creepy pizza delivery guy who left a DVD at 2 a.m., let's never meet again. So, this literally just happened. I was driving home from my boyfriend's place at around 12:30 a.m. when I noticed a car following me a little too closely. I pumped the brakes to politely tell him to fuck off and continue on my merry way. I hope this car will pass me, but he remains on my tail. I literally think of what I've learned from this very subreddit and consider the chance that he's following me. I decide to put this to the test. I flip on my turn signal to take my typical route home, and when I see he does the same, I continue straight instead. And what do you know? He does the same thing. This is when I start to freak out. At this point, I should mention that I did consider the possibility that maybe he was trying to alert me that something was wrong with my car, and I even checked my back seat, thinking back to that old urban legend. But he had plenty of chances to pull up next to me and alert me of any potential problems, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. As I'm weaving through random residential streets trying to lose this guy, I call my mom. I tell her that someone is following me and that she says to come home and run inside right away. I hear her calling to my dad, a big guy whose favorite hobbies include fishing and gun collecting, to come outside and check it out. As I begin nearing my neighborhood, this fucker starts flashing his brights and honking at me. I pull into the driveway and haul ass inside just to see my dad come to the door and head towards the mysterious car which is now parked in front of our mailbox. He told my dad that I had almost hit him. I assume he's referring to me pumping my brakes, and he thought I was drunk. So, since his aunt died in a drunk driving accident, he wanted to make sure I had gotten home safely, and he left. Not because my dad scared the shit out of him, but because I was safe. What a gentleman, right? But we weren't convinced. If he thought I was drunk, which he had no reason to, it's more likely that he would have stayed the hell away from me instead of tailgating me all the way home. At least that's what the smart thing would be to do, in my opinion. And if he merely wanted to make sure I'd gotten home safely, he wouldn't have been flashing his brights and honking at me or parking in front of my house after I had clearly arrived home and safe. So, quote-unquote, concerned citizen who takes the law into his own hands by following a 19-year-old girl home at 12:30 a.m., let's not meet. Every August, the county that I lived in would throw a huge fair. There were games, rides, shows, food, all that good stuff, for about 2 weeks. Then they would take it down and I would have to wait another year. This happened back in 2008. I was 7 at the time, I'm a guy, and I was just tall enough to ride something I'd been waiting to ride on for a long time. I convinced my mom to let me and my cousin Jared ride it. Jared was 2 years older than me, and my mom trusted us to be safe, so we ran off to ride it. After the ride, Jared had to go to the bathroom. The fair only had porta potties, so I had to wait outside for him. That's when this man showed up. He said I was supposed to go with him. I asked him why, and he just said my parents said I had to. Now, I know I should have ran away or got Jared or something, but this guy said he knew my parents. It's an obvious lie looking back. He didn't even say their names. But I thought if he knew my parents that he must not be a stranger. The guy started to take me back to his car. Now, to get to the parking lot of this fair, you have to walk a long time, probably between 5 to 10 minutes. It was a huge field they put the fair in. I asked him again where we were going, and he said we were going to McDonald's to get food. The closest McDonald's was almost an hour away. I had just ate too, so I said I wasn't hungry and I wanted to go see my mom. I started to walk away, but he grabbed my arm and started walking me towards his truck. I froze. I knew this guy was a bad guy now, but I was just in some sort of shock and couldn't move. I remember trying to scream, but all that came out was a strangled whisper, and I could remember crying without making a sound. We were right near his truck now, and he was trying to force me into the back seat when this younger couple saw him. They must have seen me panicking and crying, because the girl ran up and grabbed me and started screaming. The guy came over too, but the bad man was already in his truck. He literally ran over the guy's foot as he sped away. That younger couple saved my life. I have no idea what the guy would have done to me if we actually got to where he was heading. I know for sure it wasn't McDonald's though. The couple walked me to the entrance and the guy made an announcement that there was a missing child at the front. My mom and Jared arrived shortly after that and they were both crying. I remember running up to her and bursting into tears before whispering, "Why did you want that man to take me?" She said she didn't know who tried to take me, and we hugged tighter and left. We didn't go back to the fair again that year or the next year. My mom was paranoid that that guy was still there, looking for children. I got over it quickly and went on with my life. I only remember it because my girlfriend wanted to go on that same ride that I did last year. So, scary child molester or murderer, let's not meet again.